You are watching India Global. I'm Parmeshwar Bava. This week, we investigate whether China is getting set for a fresh round of nuclear tests. Our focus is also on the European Union, which broke years of political deadlock by agreeing on a deal that will significantly change how the bloc limits migrant entry. Meanwhile, the Red Sea, one of the most significant shipping routes in the world, is seeing tensions rise as a spillover of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. We delve into all these details. Let's begin with the headlines. In an NDTV exclusive, satellite images indicate the possible reactivation of China's Lopnur nuclear test facility in the remote northwest of the country. The big question is China getting set for a fresh round of nuclear tests? French President Emmanuel Macron to be the chief guest at India's 75th Republic Day celebrations. Do remember, Prime Minister Modi was the guest of honor at France's Bastille Day parade in July this year. A 24-year-old Czech student shot dead his father, then killed 14 people and wounded 25 others at his Prague University on Thursday before killing himself, marking the country's worst ever mass shooting. EU countries reach a major deal to overhaul their migration system and tighten asylum rules after years of bickering. While EU hails the pact as historic, human rights bodies term it as a disaster for migrants as well as asylum seekers. And Red Sea attacks disrupt global trade. Tanker entry plummets by over 40% as Yemen's Houthi militants continue targeting ships. India says we value free movement of commercial shipping and are a part of the efforts to ensure the safe transit of ships in the Arabian Sea. Amidst trade disruptions in the Red Sea, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu dials Prime Minister Modi. The importance of securing freedom of navigation to prevent disruption of global economy was discussed. Netanyahu also brings up advancing the arrival of foreign workers from India to Israel. And if you're wondering where Santa has reached, well, fret no more. Continuing a tradition that began in 1955, the US military is ready to track him and see if he's using any new technology. Well, our big focus, satellite images first published in a detailed New York Times report indicate the possible reactivation of China's Lopnur nuclear test facility in the remote Xinjiang autonomous region in the northwest of the country. Now, the images, which have since been procured by NDTV, appear to indicate that China may soon be in a position to conduct full-fledged nuclear tests or possibly subcritical nuclear explosions. Subcritical experiments simulate nuclear explosions by using chemical explosives. Vishnu Shom has further details.
Satellite images first published in a detailed New York Times report indicate the possible reactivation of China's Lopnur nuclear test facility in the remote Xinjiang autonomous region in the northwest of the country. Now, the images, which have since been procured by NDTV, appear to indicate that China may soon be in a position to conduct full-fledged nuclear tests or possibly subcritical nuclear explosions. Subcritical experiments simulate nuclear explosions by using chemical explosives. Now, why is this report important? In simple terms, because any effort by China to step up nuclear testing would indicate Beijing's interest in testing and qualifying some of its newest nuclear warhead designs fitted on a host of new generation of ballistic and cruise missiles. Now, this is the area that we are talking about. The Lopnur test range is a remote test range at a remote location where China tested its first nuclear device on the 16th of October 1964. Analysis of the area done by Dr. Reni Babiats, a leading geospatial intelligence expert, shows, among other things, a large drilling rig, almost 90 feet deep. This was first detected in August 2021. This is the township of Malan, believed to be a support facility for activities at Lopnur. But look closely, because within this township is a rig which appears to be identical to the one at the Lopnur site, which we just showed you. That one is located hundreds of miles away. What you see on your screen is thought to be a training site for shaft drillers. Images from March 2020 also show the construction of multiple tunnels in the area into a hillside. This image from April 2020 shows 5 tunnels carved into a hillside. We've numbered them, but let's focus a little more at these 5 shafts. As you can see, as we move through this entire area from shaft 1, 2 onwards to shaft 5, this is just some of the construction activity in that area. This is the Lopnur airfield in the process of being expanded, an image from 2020. Since then, we believe that a lot more has changed. That's when it really started. And finally, road making equipment in the middle of nowhere in the region is also detected in these satellite images. So why is this important for India? Well, the more tests a country does, the more refined are its weapons designs. China, as it is, has many more ballistic weapons than India, many more nuclear weapons. According to the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, a decade back, China possessed about 50 intercontinental ballistic missiles. By 2028, it is expected to have at least 507 nuclear-capable launchers. China has already done 45 nuclear tests. India has done a total of 6 in 1974. And earlier on, when Pokhran 2 took place in 1998, India has also declared a unilateral moratorium on testing. That means we will not be testing anymore, which is why we rely now on computer simulations to look at the yields of any nuclear weapons that we choose to design. If the Chinese choose to open up nuclear testing, it does open up a gigantic Pandora's box for India and, in fact, the world.
In other news, a 24-year-old Czech student shot dead his father, then killed 14 people and wounded 25 others at his Prague University on Thursday before killing himself, police said, marking the country's worst ever mass shooting. The government there declared a day of mourning across the Central European country for the 23rd of December to remember the victims. Here are the details.
Prague, a city famous for its castles and idyllic skyline, was hit by its worst mass shooting incident, which saw a student open fire at a university in the Czech capital, killing at least 15 and wounding 25 others. More fatalities are feared. Czech police said that they are working to uncover the motive behind the mass shooting. The government has ruled out any terror angle.
Informaci, kterou bych možná vyslal i do toho mezinárodního prostoru. V této chvíli neexistuje žádná indicie, že by tento čin měl jakoukoliv spojitost s mezinárodním terorismem.
It is thought that the gunman first killed his father and then proceeded with the mass shooting. The Czech government declared Saturday a national day of mourning to honor the victims.
Pro tento hrůzný čin neexistuje žádné ospravedlnění. Stejně jako řada z vás cítím hluboký smutek a znechucení tváří v tvář tomuto nesmyslnému a brutálnímu násilí. V tuto chvíli to vypadá, že šlo o čin osamělého střelce, který je nyní již po smrti. Nejedná se tedy o akt mezinárodního terorismu nebo organizované skupiny.
The shooting began at 3 p.m. local time in the Faculty of Arts building of Charles University in the center of the Czech capital, with the gunman opening fire in the corridors and classrooms of the building, killing people at random. To honor the victims, people lit candles and left flowers near the scene of the shooting. India's Foreign Minister Dr. Jaishankar also expressed grief and offered condolences to the families of victims. It is one of the worst mass shooting incidents of Europe this century, and the authorities are still looking for answers. With Vishal Vivek, Gargi Rawat for NDTV.
Well, switching tracks, the European Union broke years of political deadlock by agreeing on a deal that will significantly change how the bloc limits migrant entry, moves migrants around EU countries, and effectively makes it easier to deport unsuccessful asylum seeker applicants. The deal comes just 6 months before the EU election, with polls showing a surge in support for far-right, anti-immigration parties in countries like Germany and the Netherlands. You know what's an easy prediction for 2024? we'll be talking a lot about migration. After a pandemic-era lull, the issue has roared back to the forefront as Western leaders face pressure from the right to adopt ever stricter measures. Now, European Union leaders and top officials hailed a major breakthrough in talks on new rules to control migration, but critics say the reforms will weaken the rights of asylum seekers and encourage more morally dubious deals with countries that people leave to get to Europe. But representatives of the European Parliament and of EU governments reached an accord after all-night talks on EU laws collectively called the new Pact on Migration and Asylum that should start taking effect next year. But the new laws cover screening irregular migrants when they arrive in the European Union, procedures for handling asylum applications, rules on determining which EU country is responsible for handling applications, and ways to handle crisis. European countries now seem focused on keeping others out, and it's no surprise. European countries have struggled for years to find common ground on migration policy, but the increase in arrivals over the past year has fed the politicization of migration policy and also elevated the importance of the issue in capitals. Now, this deal, which still must be formally ratified, aims among its objectives to share the costs associated with the new arrivals more evenly among member states, to stem new arrivals, and to make it possible to deport migrants more quickly. Now, while human rights groups are condemning the new measures, saying they undermine critical protections for asylum seekers and will put newcomers at greater risk, top European officials touted the agreement as a win for Europe and those trying desperately and often dangerously to reach its shores. By the way, the French Parliament adopted a divisive bill that places tough rules on immigrants, such as making it harder for them to obtain benefits or for their children to become French citizens. Emmanuel Macron's centrist party agreed to tougher measures to win support from the French right. Migration is also dominating the political agenda in Germany, where local governments are feeling the strain of caring for large numbers of newcomers. In fact, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has vowed to take a tougher line, facing growing pressure from the right. The Italian Interior Minister also called the pact a great success for Europe and Italy and meant that EU border countries most exposed to migration would no longer feel alone. But anti-migrant sentiment has propelled the far right to victories in bastions of social liberalism, including the Netherlands, and shaped debate from Germany to Italy and Britain. But in 2024, it is clear that it will be a driving force in elections in Europe and in the United States as well. And the Red Sea, one of the most significant shipping routes in the world, is seeing tensions rise as a spillover of the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. Major shipping firms said they would avoid the Red Sea after attacks by Yemen's Houthi group on vessels disrupted global trade, prompting the establishment of a naval task force. The hostilities have put a chokehold on ships passing through the Suez Canal, which actually handles about 12% of worldwide trade. Aarti has more.
Now we take you all the way to the Red Sea. Missile attacks by Houthi militants in the Red Sea has caused major disruptions and has already started impacting global trade. In November and December of 2023, there have been at least 11 incidents involving Houthi militants in the Red Sea. These attacks have made the route highly risky. Now, several major international shipping companies have suspended their operations in the Red Sea. Ships are being diverted to longer alternate routes, increasing the journey time by 2 weeks. This in turn will result in shipping companies having to bear the brunt of higher operational costs, fuel expenditure and a delay in shipments. For consumers as well, this means they may have to wait longer for shipments and may have to pay more as well. The Bharat Petroleum has decided to halt its shipments through the Red Sea as more oil companies are also likely to follow in the same footsteps. Fuel prices can be expected to soar. Because of the hindrance in connectivity, Europe-bound grains and energy supplies will also likely see a rise in prices. Not just this, insurance premiums for risky routes since the maritime incidents in the Red Sea have increased. Shipping companies have not been able to dabble between choosing a longer alternate route or paying higher insurance premiums for sending shipments through the Red Sea, which their shipments could then be retrieved, but both options could pose expensive. Now, these disruptions along the Red Sea route could pose a problem closer to home in India as well. India will have to opt for longer, less affordable trade sea routes, which could impact exports. India majorly uses this route to export petroleum products, which could take a hit, along with exports of textiles and pharmaceutical products. Now, India's imports of crude oil, electronics and coal could also be impacted. Now, the Red Sea plays a significant role in global trade dynamics. These recent events could pose interruptions in trade flows across the world and have a far-reaching economic impact.
Upwards of 10 to 15% of global shipping transits these straits, and these attacks are impacting global trade and commerce, negatively impacting the economies of nations around the world and costing commercial shipping firms billions of dollars.
Another crucial news we're tracking, well, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave an ultimatum to Hamas to surrender or die amid intense fighting in Gaza. This as Gaza health officials say more than 20,000 people have been killed in the war. Here are the details for you. Israel intends to fight until total victory. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has reiterated his country's long-standing position on the war.
החמאס, מהראשון עד האחרון, הם בני מוות. יש להם רק שתי אפשרויות, להיכנע או למות.
Amid continuing alarm about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, the United Nations has declared catastrophic hunger levels, with thousands of people at risk of famine. But Hamas's latest statement has put the Israeli government in a difficult position. Hamas has ruled out any more hostage releases until Israel agrees to a full cessation of aggression. Meanwhile, efforts continue at the United Nations to pass a resolution on the ongoing war.
Has been adopted.
The United States has said it still has serious concerns over the draft UN Security Council resolution, which is why a vote on the resolution was postponed for a fourth day in a row. Reports state that the vote was delayed after Russia, also a veto power in the UN Security Council, and some other council members complained during closed-door talks about the amendments made to appease the United States. Meanwhile, the crisis in the Red Sea, with continuing Houthi attacks and the need for more Indian workers in Israel, topped the agenda during Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Benjamin Netanyahu's phone call on Tuesday. Emphasizing India's support for free movement of commercial shipping, the Ministry of External Affairs has said that this is something India will continue to monitor.
And there have been 3 hearings in the Qatar.
This as the international community is increasingly turning against Israel's ongoing military onslaught in Gaza, in large part due to a growing civilian death toll and humanitarian crisis. That's putting new pressure on Israel's government and its closest ally, the United States, which is supplying and backing the Israeli offensive. Netanyahu vows to utterly eliminate Hamas militarily and politically, but analysts seriously doubt that is possible. Yet, even if he succeeds, he has failed so far to answer US President Joe Biden's basic question: what comes next? Parmeshwar Bava for NDTV. And earlier this week, Prime Minister Modi had for the first time responded to allegations of an Indian assassination plot in the United States, saying he will look into any evidence, but a few incidents would not derail US-India ties. In fact, in an interview with the Financial Times, Mr. Modi sought to play down the diplomatic impact of a US indictment last month that claimed an Indian official directed the attempted murder of a Sikh separatist on American soil. Here's our report.
Prime Minister Modi reiterating India's commitment to the rule of law and fair play when asked about India's alleged role in the so-called Kill Pannun plan. In an interview with Financial Times earlier this week, he also said there is a strong bipartisan support for the strengthening of this friendship, and that he doesn't think it appropriate to link a few incidents with diplomatic relations between the two countries. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau responded in a media interview saying he had noticed a shift in tone from India over the Nijjar killing after the US Justice Department came forward with its own allegations. India rebuffed Trudeau's comments and said that Canada gives space to separatists, terrorists and anti-India elements. 52-year-old Nikhil Gupta has been detained in Prague since June for his alleged involvement in the Pannun assassination plot.
This is a comment by the Prime Minister of Canada, and I wouldn't like to comment on that. But I think our position has been quite consistent, and whenever this has been raised, I think we have highlighted how we see the problem, and frankly the core issue remains the space that is given to extremists and terrorists and anti-India elements in that country.
Gupta's family moved the Supreme Court seeking intervention with the Czech authorities. The family argued that no help has been extended by the Indian government. The apex court asked the family to move the Czech court and will hear the matter later.
हमें consular access मिला है, 3 बार उनसे एटलीस्ट 3 बार consular access हमें मिला है, और हम जिस तरह जो भी आवश्यक consular सहायता प्रदान कर सकते हैं हम कर रहे हैं जो वो मांग रहे हैं, और इस व्यक्ति के एक परिवार के सदस्य ने मामले को ऑनरेबल सुप्रीम कोर्ट में के पास कोई याचिका दी थी, और अभी मामला सब जुडिस है, इसीलिए इस संबंध में अधिक टिप्पणी करना उचित नहीं होगा.
Responding to media queries, the Czech prison authorities have denied his family's allegations that his human rights were violated. They said legal standards have been meticulously followed. Nikhil Gupta is lodged in the Pankrat prison in Prague and is awaiting extradition to the US. Last week, a group of Indian-American members of Congress, who included influential supporters of President Joe Biden, released a statement condemning the alleged Pannun murder plot, which they called deeply concerning, and said they welcome India's announcement of inquiry into the matter. With Vishal Vivek, Bureau Report, NDTV.
And finally, as Santa Claus is busy making final preparations for his annual globe-trotting gift-giving Christmas trip, continuing a tradition that began back in 1955, the US military is ready to track him and see if he's using any new technology.
Wondering where Santa has reached? Fret no more. Continuing a tradition that began in 1955, US military is ready to track him and see if he's using any new technology.
Santa doesn't file a flight plan with NORAD, but the great part is that we, NORAD, are able to use the technology, the same technology we use every single day to keep North America safe, to track Santa on December 24th. So it starts with our North Warning System radars. As soon as Santa departs the North Pole, those radars pick him up.
The tracking Santa tradition began with a wrong number call in 1955. Air Force Colonel Harry Shoup, the commander on duty at NORAD's predecessor, took a call from a child who dialed a misprinted telephone number in a newspaper department store ad thinking she was calling Santa. A fast-thinking Shoup quickly assured his caller that he was Santa. And as more calls came in, he assigned a duty officer to keep answering. And the tradition continues till date. Meanwhile, Santa Claus is busy making final preparations in Lapland for his annual globe-trotting gift-giving Christmas trip. Santa Claus's village, about 8 kilometers north of Rovaniemi in northern Finland, is bustling with activity. Children have been sending their last-minute wish lists, hoping they'll reach Santa's elves on time.
Oh, hello again. So please come here, How are you today?
Good.
Everything okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So please sit down here. Please sit down. Are they a little bit timid? What do you think? Yeah, I know. That happens with the adults quite often.
Santa Claus Village's main post office receives about 30,000 letters a day in December. So if you haven't already posted your wish list, there's still some time. And if you miss Santa in Lapland, you can catch him mid-journey thanks to NORAD's Santa Tracker. Bureau Report, NDTV.
Well, thank you for investing your time and watching this episode of India Global. We'll be back next week. Do stay tuned.